welcome to another episode of TNFro with Reading. I'm your host, Felicia Baxter. In this episode, I am recording live from my home in the USA. I'm blessed. I don't have to occupy anywhere, and I don't have to return to a tent because I factually am part of the landed capitals, and I own it. But you will notice the length of this episode. It would just go on and on until I stopped it. If I did not stop it, I will chat about what I watched this past week, remembering those in the Alphabet Mafia who lost their lives to live their truth, and those advocates fighting for that recognition. I will share with you other writings and conversations with my cousin Drac, another creative, and my BFF Janelle in her own words. In doing so, I hope to honor the memory of Mr. George Floyd, who was laid to rest this past week, and reinforce the principles of the anti-racist movement sweeping this country. In doing so, as a creative, would be irresponsible. And I hope you learned something and you enjoyed this episode as much as I've enjoyed creating it. And thank you for listening. So, in more frivolous times, and now that I have my time, actually, unlike other people's time, I have the time to watch and read and write what I actually want to write. That is what I call true freedom. I have been following, low-key trying, part of the Insecure series. This is, I believe this is episode 7. And one of the things that Molly's therapist actually asks her is very simple. Does the relationship still serve you? And I found it intriguing because if you just are friends with someone, platonic friends, is the friendship kind of like a business transaction? Or who is the top dog in the friendship? But I guess it's me getting a more further understanding of what friendship actually is. It's a give and take. It is, you get something for being in that relationship. And if you're not getting anything, validation, uplift, love, etc., why stay in that relationship? This episode I also thought spoke to the depth of female relationships. It goes back and forth, the shit show that could potentially be between Nathan and Issa and Lauren and Issa. It portends something really messy coming up. Issa and Molly finally have a lunch or brunch they keep to superficial, safe topics. At least Issa showed up. And they never get to the depths of what is the really issue of their lack of relationship. What tripped me out as an aside is the faux show within the show. It's so ghetto, but it's so what we watch now on reality TV. To just basically decompress. It seems like all the actors' interaction between the other actors are evolving into something more, and it is intriguing to find out how they all are going to navigate this. Molly, and rightfully so, I think, she thinks she's a whole ass person. And she can't see or make Issa fit into her new reality. And then Issa doesn't want to put in the effort to have to recreate a space within Molly or try to figure out how Molly fits in her new life. I've found that this show brings up more questions than there are answers, but it does lend itself to my reality now and a lot of people's reality because there are a lot of podcasters that follow this show and they also comment on it. I'm just intrigued by the how this is all going to be pulled together because the next episode drops actually today, I believe, or like tomorrow morning, and you best believe on my day off I'm going to be watching and also commenting on it. And I know it was renewed for another season, like 10 episodes. So that in itself is a great thing. But with COVID, a lot of the recording in Hollywood has been pushed back. I don't know when the new season is actually going to drop. So I hope they wrap it up well, keep us on the hook to look at another 10 episodes because I think the final one is going to be a doozy. In an effort to create a podcast, I find myself reading a lot and also I try to script or write what I'm actually going to say, and I try not to go off script as much as possible, but sometimes I go off the rails just because that's just who I am. And I also wish that other people would follow suit and just stick to the script. Don't try to speak off the cuff because it ends up being really stupid. But with all the everything that has been going on in the past week, I find myself with a lot to say. Um, and I also am finding that it helps to break up my episodes with smaller episodes and words of encouragement. I'm going to continue to do that throughout the next several months because I think it's going to be helpful for people to get a sense of the truth of what's happening, someone else's take, but not so off the rails that you won't be able to form your own opinion and to take in the information and to make a difference in someone else's life. Again, a lot of the programming that's out there, I think they are negligent in what they are reporting and allowing people to hear and to take in without any editing because most people are going to wait for other people to put together the story and to so they before they form the opinion on it, not even knowing that what they've taken in is probably not at all correct. I also look back because this a lot of this stuff has happened before. It's just before our time. Um, the rage and the violence of the early 20th century, right after Reconstruction, the civil rights movement. We've seen this before. We've just not, the 24/7 news cycle has not, is what has put it to the forefront of our mind and to a certain extent has desensitized us to some of these images. But it was a lot worse with the lynchings of the early 20th century and then even with the fire hoses of the 60s. So I would like to think that Martin and Malcolm X, they would have understood the rage, in particular Martin. Um, he says it was through the Chicago marches that our promise to them that nonviolence achieved results was redeemed and their hopes for a better life were rekindled. They saw a humane, actually that should be humane, police force in contrast to the police in Mississippi and now in Minnesota could defend the exercise of constitutional rights as well as enforce the law in the ghetto. They saw in the prosperous white American communities that hatred and bigotry could and should be confronted and exposed and dealt with. Martin wrote that for McCall's in 1966 as what his wishes actually were for Christmas, and it also speaks to what people would refer or would prefer now. This is also Pride 2020, and I can't leave off with one of the things that I watched and I didn't mention was at the top of this particular segment is of what I'm watching is that I actually watched the second season of Pose. I had to go back and watch the last couple of episodes, and it had been a while since I watched the series in its entirety, but I realized just how beautiful and just raw that show was. It is one, the music is sick. That's the first thing I noticed from Insecure to Pose, how wonderful the music is, how beautiful the artistry is, and just how beautiful the people are as they live in their truth. I love Billy Porter. I love all of the actors and actresses in this particular series. But if you're transphobic or homophobic, it is not a series for you. But it is one of those series that reveals a subculture and how even Madonna misappropriated and took the Vogue, and how it was just an expression. That's where it started. That particular dance and a lot of the dance and fashion and attitude started in the transgender LGBTQ, which I call the Alphabet Mafia's community. And you're not going to understand everything it is to just by watching that show, notwithstanding. But it was during this period of time that they were blamed for an illness that basically was wiping out the entire community. This is also it was the start of the HIV pandemic, and how all of them were affected, and it really put to life me as a physician how there was no treatment, and how the one treatment that they had was actually toxic because we hadn't worked out the dosages yet. And Billy Porter had a severe reaction. He developed ITP, and how they were managing them on like TB patients on the butter diet and just vitamins. And I'm like, nah, bro. Butter is not going to get your counts, your viral load to zero. And AZT wasn't going to get your by itself wasn't going to get your viral load to zero before at those dosages causing toxicity. How little we knew about that disease at that time, and how they were still telling people not to use condoms. That in itself blew my mind. That it was because everybody was not supposed to cheat, and if you were in a relationship or in a marriage, you were supposed to not have to use condoms and procreate. But that is how it jumped from one community to the other, because people were having high risk unprotected sex. Men were on the DL and then bringing the disease back to their hetero partners. And sometimes the women didn't know until they were dying of PCP and they had already given it to their kids. So with that, and it did not become a problem, and there was no uptick in the finding a cure until it had crossed over until the hetero community and other people that were dying of it, which I found to be, it was okay when it was just that the queer man's disease, but when it basically crossed over, that's when it became a problem. It would have been fine if it had just stayed in Africa, or had wiped out Haiti, or had just completely and decimated the homosexual community. But when it crossed over and started affecting hetero white people, that's when it became a pandemic or epidemic, and it had to be stopped. And then money started to be dropped in millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to stop it. But in spite of all of that tragedy and hurt, the community recovered, still found love, and still, and there were several people that were actually saved from it. And there's so many people that are on the front line in Pride 2020 that are doing really great things. Like actress India Moore, she's raised over $20,000 since the start of the corona pandemic to help transgender women of color pay for food, rent, and gender affirming care. There's the photographer uh, Ali Shimoli. She's a quarantine photographer. She celebrates queer personhood and chosen family and community resilience during the pandemic. There's mass sewing drag queen Gary Sushi Marion, working with other drag performers to sew masks from his home in Key West. That would be a great place to shelter in place. I'm just saying. There is Reverend Kim Jackson, a vicar of the Episcopal Church of the Common Ground, focusing on protecting her vulnerable congregation. There is Black Trans Advocacy Coalition founder Carter Brown is taking steps to ensure Black and transgender people don't get pushed further into the margins. There's Pennsylvania top doc Rachel Levine, the Keystone State Secretary of Health, is earning high marks for her response to the corona pandemic. We all could learn from her. There's Shannon Bennett, the first law enforcement officer in Florida to die from coronavirus. There's Dr. Jane Bettle, retired in February after a 30-year career as a physician and health official, but it wasn't long before she jumped back in as a volunteer. That's not me. Go girl. Nah. There is the co-founder of Backpacks for the Street, Jason Connor. He delivers mass hand sanitizer and other pandemic supplies through those experiencing homelessness. There is Caius Kelly, New York's first frontline co-worker to die of COVID. He was a nurse who galvanized colleagues fed up with the lack of protective gear. He died early on in this nonsense. There is Liliana Angel Reyes, director of the LGBTQ Youth Drop-In Service at Detroit's Ruth Ellis Center and head of the Trans Sisters of Color Project. There is Mark Canamera, a former Lady Gaga backup dancer, and a So You Think You Can Dance contestant who is leading the quarantine dance party. And there's just so many others. Those were just a few other people that are being honored today through NBC in celebration of Pride. If you can do no more than just recognize people for their actual what they identify as their gender. Hill Harper, you need a bag of gummy penises, trying to by not recognizing Dwayne Wade's daughter as who she recognizes herself as, and you need to be ashamed of yourself. And for all others that refuse to recognize what people identify as and want to drag them because of it, shame on you, and you deserve a bag of gummy penises. And that's how I'm going to lead in my next segment, WTF and who needs to be on that list. It just seems like every time I try to like people, they make it more and more easier for me to dislike them. And to be okay with being a hermit and staying in my house. There are the platforms and podcast shows that point out the obvious shenanigans and stupidity of people. There have been so many gaffes and side eye moments and missteps over the past several weeks that I actually had to cut short my WTF post because I could have gone on and added many, many people to my list of people that needed gummy penises. If you've made this list, this is not the list you want to make because it's not an honor. By your inclusion on this list, you've either said or done some stupid crap that's landed you here. And I just want you people to understand it's okay to be silent. If you have nothing good to say or that's going to help somebody else, just stop fucking talking. It's all I need you to do. Just don't say nothing. And if you don't like profanity, this post is not for you. And why am I cussing, you may ask? Because the following BS and shenanigans is still going on around the world. First off, the door-to-door salesman peddling bug spray for ants and any kind of little organism. You knocking on my door like you the freaking bopo. Do you understand that the bug spray won't kill corona? So why are you on my porch not practicing social distancing? You not 6 feet back, bro. And you ain't got on no damn mask. Get off my porch. Go away. You stop talking me to death. Lack of empathy from someone I considered a friend. We were talking about the Occupy Seattle that's going on. The same mayor has told the president of the United States to go back to his bunker. In effect, gone down somewhere, you ain't talking me to death. If you are an entitled average guy from Michigan, not recognizing the forces behind the working poor living in tents with their kids and possessions because they can't afford the astronomical rents, or how someone could be only 1 or 2 paychecks from homelessness. I don't have time for you. And you can't empathize or understand the bigger picture. You want to criminalize homelessness and poverty, wanting them to hide and go back to their tent cities without fixing the problems that landed them there. That is so short-sighted, no pun intended, because I know your ass can't see, but so typical. I just need you to stop talking. And I'm not the one to listen to your nonsense. You're not going to be able to convince me of hiding these people away and just calling them beggars and they don't deserve a second chance or a chance to live in what we take for granted. You need a bag of gummy penises. To the Customs and Border Patrol that are spending out money on dirt bikes and ATVs. My tax rate is between 17 to 30%, depending on my write-offs. And you mean to tell me these bitches are misappropriating funds? Why aren't they in jail? They are embezzling funds instead of it taking care of the people that deserve it. What is going on here? Chump or Cheeto 45 says he hopes George Floyd is looking down and celebrating the jobs report. This is a great day for him. What do you mean? He dead, bro. He got his neck snapped by an inhumane, dirty cop. Are you really Are you that crazy? Get his name out your mouth, you piece of racist crap. How dare you? And I'm still looking on my money that they say that The Democratic Party is paying people to hate Trump. I need my check. Small bills. And then that dumbass Ohio senator wonders, do colored people not wash their hand, and that's why we're more susceptible to corona? So I haven't been colored since I was born. That was the last time me and my parents were referenced as such. But this dickhead in Ohio is saying we are dying because we ain't washing our hands, when I know that it was just last year that your people say that they don't even wash their legs. They just let the washing and the soap from the upper half of the body just rinse off their stinky ass feet and legs. Bitch, please go sit down somewhere. Stop talking. We laid to rest Mr. George Floyd. Then we have other people like Candace Owens, and there's some guy named, is it Shahid or last name Moore, talking shit like he's not a martyr, and why black people shouldn't put ourselves in harm's way to make ourselves more vulnerable when we aren't. Some of us are just minding our own business, getting pulled out of our cars, getting shot while sleeping, getting shot while walking. That's Ahmaud Marbury. We just don't deserve to die unarmed and defenseless. And we're still seeing upcroppings of other police brutality videos, Oklahoma and Austin, people pleading for their lives and the cops saying they don't care. You can't blame the victim. They're part of the problem. You need to stop talking and stay off of social platform. If you're trying to go for clicks, you're going about it the wrong way. You're getting ready to be on the wrong side of history. And ain't nobody going to defend you for being dumb. Confederate flags coming down at NASCAR, 1,700 monuments on the chopping block, Christopher Columbus's statues being thrown in the drink. I'm not asking why not. I'm asking why it took so damn long. And why are we having a problem with renaming bases that were named after Confederate generals? I'm right here at Bragg. Braxton Bragg was a nutbag. He court-martialed himself, y'all, for Pete's sake. He was the general of the arsenal, but he was also quartermaster general. And he basically got mad at himself and court-martialed himself. So his men hated him. He was also hated by contemporaries and has been singularly blamed for all of the battles lost of the Confederacies because of his incompetence. These men stood for the dissolution of the Union and to protect the right for people to own other people. Why wouldn't you want our bases not to be named after these fools? That's not hard. For those FedEx workers and New York Department of Corrections officers that got fired and suspended because they reenacted All Lives Matter, stop it. That's dumb. It's disrespectful. You need to shut the fuck up. I keep hearing, and he actually changed it because how insulting this was to hold a rally for your racist ass on Juneteenth in Tulsa, one of the sites of the largest racist pogroms in this country that resulted in hundreds of African Americans dying and the destruction of their businesses. But I wouldn't have been shocked if he still held it, because he doesn't give a crap about people. His base would have loved that. And he doesn't listen to anyone. When you are sociopathic dumbass, you gonna do dumb shit. And his supporters having to sign coronavirus waivers. So he is willing to put, this basically says, I'm willing to put you at risk to go to some dumbass rally or some Republican in the Republican nomination I know it may kill you, but I'm really willing for you to sign your life away so you can actually participate. That has to be the creme de la creme of stupidity. And for anybody that signed those waivers, good luck to you. You need a bag of gummy penises. You have a round table with black bloggers and radio personalities that correct you on the deplorable conditions within our own community, which you just blow off and not recognize. Who would accept that invitation, knowing that this dumbass don't care anything about your community because it's not his community? We have to know our historical mistakes or we're doomed to repeat those mistakes. That is the mark of insanity. You keep repeating goofy crap expecting a different outcome. In order for you to fix the problem, is you have to recognize that there is a problem. Racism, which is this country is founded under, permeates through everything. It really exists. Just because you don't want to see color, I know what color I am, and I know that your privilege is could potentially put my life at risk. Every single day I recognize that. I recognize it when I apply for loans, when I apply for new credit cards, or even with getting my card. I know that there are people that don't want me to have the little bit that I do have just because I'm a fat chick with a fro and black in the South. I know that. And I fight against that every single day. I know that people are marginalized. There is lack of great health care. The police culture has to be fixed, or if they can't find a way forward to fix it, maybe it would make sense to defund them and to disband them. You may have to be like Trenton, New Jersey. Just start back over because it was just too corrupt and it was just too wild and out for them to fix. If you find yourself in that situation, if you got to disband it and rebuild it, so be it. Then then do it. And the state governments and the government should actually support that. But tolerating brutality and the racism is not what we do. And you can't hide the dirt and expect it not to pile out and to roll from underneath the rug. What the problems are, what the reason why there was an explosion, because you can't expect to continue to sweep this stuff underneath the rug anymore because it's all going to come to light. And for those of you that want to ignore it and not recognize it, not support change, then you need to go sit down somewhere. And again, just shut the fuck up and let the grown people fix this shit. So, in preparing this part of the podcast, I had the pleasure of my creative cousin Drake from Manhattan, New York, taking the time out of his really busy schedule. He always has a hustle, y'all, just so you know. But he basically wanted to, and I wanted him to get his perspective on several things, including being black in New York during the pandemic, where because New York was ground zero along with the West Coast, as well as talking about his reaction to the death of George Floyd, his experience, and also the next steps. And he is putting together his own show that hopefully will be picked up because I would be interested in watching and learning more about voter empowerment. Um, he is so different than me because I don't think he would really get my WTF rants because it has a lot of profanity in it and he doesn't cuss. He says you can say things clearly without using profanity. he we were raised in the same family, but our experiences were different. He believed that people, uh, the way people are, they are. There's a profoundness for being able to forgive, and people will make mistakes. He grew up where he was basically sheltered and protected for most of his young life. And then the big bang was when he went to Bayside Junior, because both of us grew up. Our family is originally from Virginia Beach, Virginia. And he said his experience was pretty protected. It wasn't his, but colorism and the racist was right within the family. He didn't feel as bad as it did until he went to Bayside Junior, until experience with the family. And obvious racism when he went away to college, and uh, the apartment that he had rented by phone, it was no longer available once his potential roommate set eyes on him. And he is going to talk about that a little bit more, the blatant racism and how you can't hold in the anger, just be anger in and not do anything about it. So he gets and he recognizes the pain and why people of the protest, but he can't, you see, is really is you can't get stuck in it. How do you move past it, and what are the actions that are required to be able to effectively make a change? He thinks the current or the upcoming elections, we got to pay attention and educate ourselves if we're picking the right type of people that are going to not only effect the change, but are able to work with a wide range of people across the aisles and to be able to effectively use your words. He understands the importance of racism, and that is how we're going to make a change in this country. And we got and we also have to recognize that we have a group of people that want to hold on to their power, that are going to use that and effect and this power grab and hold on to their power by any means necessary. And if it requires them to lie, to cheat, to steal, they are effectively going to do that. They are this group of people like Nixon. The only reason why he failed is because his ass got caught. We got people that don't give a freak about getting caught. They will cheat, and how we have to be cognizant against it and not believe the hype and make sure that if they are caught cheating, that they get their due process and get prosecuted for it. But and I'm going to leave you to it because his interview actually was a lot longer than I was expecting, but I think he actually has some great truths in it. And I'm hopeful that you will expand your fund of knowledge as you listen to my conversations with my cousin. And thanks for listening. This computer. All right. So first, thank you for just taking the time out just to chat with me, because I want to understand this from another creative's perspective, and how what your take on twofold on COVID, on and as also being an African American man, and how this in the recent unrest, how has it affected you? And you can say that as succinctly as possible or as long as possible.
So my focus is what we can do to move forward. I don't focus on what I can't change. That's a lesson a long time ago. And then you also have to embrace change, how it comes. It is how it is. I'm not a force of nature to where I can force change. But I can roll with it. That's my job as a producer. But if I see there's a need for something, then I have a responsibility to do something. In the past, we would assume, that someone else with the power to be to do the right thing. Well, we've learned that's not the case. So for me, when I'm producing 2 shows, you know, and one is very fun focused, music focused, and because I honestly believe we need more content where people just can laugh. You know, there's so much dark content that exists, you know, and I just can't contribute to that. You know, I just can't be a contributor to that, you know, and I work with a lot of big music talent, and I'm one of the few people, I'm very language conscious. You know, I will not support, you know, talent, you know, when I'm working on something that they use, you know, profanity, you know, or derogatory language or someone. I can't do it. You know, I just can't do it, you know, and so I've lost, you know, some talent because they want to be able to say what they want to say. I'm like, you have a lot of platforms to do that. It just won't be mine, you know, because there needs to be at least a couple sources where people can hear things cleanly, you know, without insulting other people. Yes, people are mad, you know, about different things, and we all get mad. But the reality is, you know, and it sounds like I'm going off in a different direction, but one thing that concerns me is in our current culture is people make mistakes, you know, and am I the same person I was 10 years ago? No.
No.
You know,
Yeah,
exactly. So if I had how I felt about someone or something 10 years ago is totally different than how I feel about it now. You know, so this whole thing, pulling up someone's tweets from 20 years ago or whatever, if the person has shown consistent change, they've grown. We're as people, you know, that's life. You know, we've got to be accepting of mistakes. Now, there's some people, obviously, that's who they are, you know, and they meant it at the time, you know, and they've grown a little bit. But if we continue to divide people, we're never going to learn from people, you know. And I think you and I, did you go to Pembroke Meadows? I'm not sure if you went to Pembroke Meadows or not. But
no, I actually went to Newtown Road.
Oh, so. Yeah, so we had a little bit of a different upbringing, at least I did in my mind. And you have to ask, you know, your other cousins about what their perception of our upbringing was. But I remember we were one of the first Black families to go to this all-white school. So my perception of race really didn't exist. You know, I didn't have a perception of white and Black until I got home. You know, when I was at school, you know, we just didn't care about, you know, Black and white and what someone was. And I think, yeah, and one, because they're all white, it's like Black, but no one really cared about that. It wasn't a conversation. It wasn't a thing until we would go home, you know, and our parents make comments about it, you know. But for most of my elementary schools, race was never a factor, you know. And I have to say, you know, that, you know, Mom was, she was really, really good about protecting us and shielding us from biased environments. You know, and so I just was so unaffected, you know, and I was so naive, you know, about, you know, how people felt because of the color of your skin. And I remember, and it was all my fault, you know, because I was watching something, Mom was watching TV, then I think, you know, Rhonda and Ray, they were at the, you know, kitchen table. And then I think it was something like Black people protesting something. And I said to Mom, I said, what's wrong with those people? They're always so angry.
Because that was not your existence, because you lived in a sheltered, protected, and did it take you until you were a teenager or even as an adult? How long did it take you to?
Well, let me tell you, after I said that, you know, she took us out of the schools that were at Mern's address to our address, and then our whole world's changed. You know, I made the mistake. It was my comment caused her to say, these kids don't understand what it means to be Black. That's what it said to her. You know, so she pulled us all out. She switched us all to Bayside junior high school and high school. It was horrible. It was horrifying, you know, because, you know, all of a sudden all my friends were white, you know, and then all of a sudden, you know, through the first year of junior high school, then I pulled into Bayside Junior. I was already odd to begin with, you know, and then I was thrown into this new environment. You know, I was very naive about how people were because, you know, my mother said, if you're nice to other people, they'll be nice to you. That's what I would learn. You know, I'm like, okay.
It wasn't so that because you went, now it's a middle school, but you went to Bayside Junior like I did. And then I went to Bayside and graduated from Bayside High. So, wow.
It was horrible for me. It was absolutely nightmarish, you know. And so, because they did not like me, they didn't get me. I didn't understand them. I didn't understand why they didn't like me. You know, like the white people didn't like me, the black people didn't like me. No one liked me, you know. So because I wasn't black enough for the black, I wasn't white enough, obviously, for the white kids. You know, because they're like, why are you talking to us? You know, I'm like, why can't I talk to anyone? You know, or everyone? You know, so I was, and then I thought I was a nerd, so that didn't help. You know, so and then it was just really, really weird for me. And people talk about, you know, racism from like different cultures. I have to say, I was treated the worst by my own family. Yeah, you know, so they made fun of my complexion all the time. You know, I didn't have any issues with my complexion. You know, but you know, I was given so much grief, you know, about my complexion. You know, from our own family. Yeah, I didn't get any grief about my complexion going to school. You know, I got it at home. You know, and so that was really, really tough for me. And I remember this one moment, you know, and I don't mention who it was. One of our relatives, she was scrubbing on my face, you know, and I said to her, I said, it's not going to come off. You know, I think I made her cry. I said, this is my color. You know,
and having that experience in the black brush and how not, because you're like, I have eczema, so my joints are a little darker.
Oh yeah, I didn't understand. That happened to me. I was and I didn't cut you off, but I took a photo of when I lived in New York, and so for some reason my knees are darker. I don't know why, they just are. So I took this photo and I sent it around to some friends. I said, "Why are your knees so black?" I was like, "What?"
And exactly.
I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I'm black.
You know, and it's just wild because as far as, you know, like the whole colorism within the whole family, you feel that. And I'm like, Grandma Punk, she was one of the most, she was very fair skinned, but that was just a fact of who the genetics and who her father was. But all of her kids are dark. Sorry, we are so sorry.
Yeah, I'm like, I felt like so bad for most of my childhood, you know, in teenage years, because things I couldn't change, you know, and so, yeah, and then like I'm multicolored, unfortunately, you know, like my face and knees, whatever, like some like my darkest areas, the rest of me isn't that complexion, so I'm multicolored to begin with. So it was just a horrible experience, you know. But as far as I remember I met this girl in when I was at Independence, you know, and it was Lisa. I have a thing for redheads, you know. I didn't know I had a thing for redheads, but I realized obviously I did. So Lisa was my first girlfriend. She's redhead, you know, and so we clicked. We really got along. And so, like, you know, in school, you took your annual photo, you know, for the yearbook or whatever they wanted to call it. And so I remember bringing the photo home, you know, and I said, I want you guys to see who my girlfriend is. They all just looked at me because I had this photo, this white-headed, redheaded white girl. You know, they're like, "This is your girlfriend," and they're all upset. Not all of it, right? There's a key. I won't mention who was really the most upset. And I said, and I was a very illogical kid, unfortunately. I was too smart for my own good. And I said, what do you expect? I go to school with all white people. Who do you think I was gonna, you know?
Exactly. It's like you go with who you're exposed to or who you have the most. I don't get it. Yeah.
Yeah. I was always getting popped, you know, because my mouth wouldn't close soon enough, you know. So then and I went back to school the next day. I was so sad because I had to break up with Lisa, and then she was sad too. I said, "Why are you sad?" She says, "Did you show my photo to your family?" She goes, "Yes." The same reaction. We didn't understand why. So we went to our math teacher, you know, because, you know, she was white, because she loved me and Lisa. I said, "So we were a couple yesterday, and today we're not," because our families said no. Yeah, she was so upset. You know, she says, life has challenges. She says, this is a small one. She says, but you two got to grow past it. You know, and she said, you could be a couple in my classroom. You know, so we felt so much better because we couldn't understand, you know, like, what's the big deal? You know, I like who I like, you know, and so, but my point I'm trying to make is, so I have a different perspective probably than most people have. Most people have probably grown up in a a similar environment through their, kid hits, from when we were kids to like high school, whatever. I had such a varying degree of experiences, but I really did not experience any racism from that I was aware of, from a white person till my first year of college, because I was still very naive about people, what Mom said, if you're nice to people, they're nice to you. So I was gonna move into this apartment, and then I had it all set up. We talked on the phone, and my name, you think I'm white, and you listen to me, you think that I'm white. You don't think I'm a black person, I was always very aware of that, but whatever, never was an issue. And so, and I talked to him literally the morning of the guy who I was moving in with, and because he had a spare room in his apartment. And then I said, I'm going to bring over some stuff, and then I'll figure the rest of the move later. So I get there. He obviously didn't know I was black. He was like in shock, and then I was like, he says, well, oh, it's been rented. I said, yeah, no, by me. He goes, no. He says, my brother's coming. I said,
ooh,
your brother? I said, we just talked this morning. He goes, yeah. He says, just happened. I said, but we have an agreement. I don't understand. He goes, I don't know what to tell you, bro. Maybe try going someplace like in Norfolk, or
Ooh.
And I was like, wow. I was in shock. I was in absolute shock. I went home crying to Mom. I was like this 17-year-old kid going crying to their mother. And I said, I don't understand what happened. And she was so upset because she did such a great job in protecting us from having to deal with that type of bias, and then all of a sudden in the real world, it's not as kind, So it was a really hard lesson for me to understand, because, one, we didn't have a lot of money. So it wasn't like I went to, a lot of stores to go shopping for clothes and stuff because we didn't have any money. So I never was followed in a store because I always had hand-me-downs. I wasn't buying stuff, and so in groceries, they always did the grocery shopping, so I didn't go to the grocery store for that. And I would just ride my bike to 7-Eleven. There was no issues there. So I didn't really have, and I would go to the movies just like anyone else. There was no issue there. So I didn't have a lot of experience. I think because she set it up that way, to make sure that we just had like the happiest childhood as we possibly could because of other circumstances. So when I see these things now, that are happening today, I'm processing because, some people, they have valid reasons for being really, really angry. There are a lot of reasons to be angry, but I'm always like, okay, you can be angry or you can figure out a way to solve the problem, and how long do you want to be angry? Because I know so many angry people. I was like, how long do you want to be angry? And you're judging people like, I have some black friends that, they're mad, they're white friends, and they're white friends. I was like, they have not walked in your shoes. You can't blame them for that. And now they're coming to you to try and understand. You've got to give them the latitude to get it before they're willing to, make a change. Because most people, if you are person of privilege, regardless of who your race is, et cetera, you don't want to give that up. I don't care what you say. I got it good. I don't mind helping other people as long as it doesn't take away from me, and that's just the reality, and so I help other people all the time, when I can, but I don't want to go live on the street to help a homeless person, so and I'm not saying it's that direct or that dramatic, but, you have to give people a chance to evolve, and not every person that is unaware is racist, and maybe they're doing things that could be perceived as racist, but that's always subjective. They're not like, they're not hanging out a flag or whatever, they're saying it. I don't understand because I haven't had, one, maybe they didn't take the time to understand it, but two, it just thought it wouldn't affect. Like literally, I was talking to my friend, she knows a really big reporter for the New York Daily News or whatever it is, and I met her at one of my, events. And so she told my friend Michelle, she told her friend Dana, who's the, and she said, oh, Drake gets, profiled as well when he goes, to his daily life. And she couldn't believe it. She told Michelle, no way, not Drake. Because in her mind, I wasn't the type of person to be profiled. So Michelle was so upset. She said, she's a racist. I said, she's not a racist. Obviously, she's your friend. She's not a racist. But in her mind, I don't fit what someone should be profiled as. She probably has in her mind, oh, look at that person. Yeah, he's probably the type to be profiled. But since she met me, when I was all dressed up, for an event, whatever, she's like, no, he could never be subjected to that type of treatment because that's just not him, you know. And so I see that as a learning lesson, you know, for someone. You know, I'm like, yeah, when I look nice, yeah, of course people treat me that way. Like, but when I'm in sweatpants, you know, and wearing a mask, and I have to make this comment because I made this comment with a friend. I had this big argument with a friend of mine, you know, who lives in Thailand now. He's this white guy, one of my good friends. You know, he said, Drake, you have to start wearing a mask soon. I said, no one in New York have to wear a mask. I said, you people, everyone in Asia, they wear masks. I said, we're not gonna wear masks here. That's crazy. And then, but I wasn't honest with him, nor myself, the one main reason I didn't want to wear masks besides having asthma is that I've learned, because I live in a pretty nice area, you know, that if people can see most of my face, they're less likely to treat me differently. You know, if they can see less of my face, which the mask covers, they just see me as a black person who might want to rob them, you know?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And so that was the main reason why I didn't want to wear a mask, you know, because I'm always followed around in stores and stuff, you know, and when I walk a lot, you know, and there are not many, you know, people of color in my neighborhood. And so I walk a lot and they see me, he's casing the joint. He's casing our homes, you know, figure out when we're here or not, you know, all these things, you know, they enter my mind. And when I walk into the stores, I'm always follow around. You know, they can have others who are not, you know, a black male in the same store. They could be putting stuff in their pocketbook all the time. But for me, I'm followed everywhere, you know, so it gets irritating. And so, you know, you know, and I'm sure you, especially what you do, you're a doctor, you know, we bottle all these things down because we just consider it to be a part of our lives. You know, we just accepted it. You know, we smile, we just accept it. So what caused me to pause is that this younger generation is saying, not us. You know,
they're not going to bottle it up.
They're not going to bottle it up.
And they're not as accepting or forgiving.
Exactly. And I said to myself, wow, I said, you know, and that's why I'm still processing this whole thing. And I said, well, why did I accept it? Yeah, I said, yes, I want to get ahead of my career, you know, all this other thing. I said, but I accepted from so many people in so many ways, not even realizing how often I would let things fly, you know, little comments, you know, that people would make. And so one of my friends who I love to death, her name is Liv, I've known her for, we have a really, really tough sense. You know, I can say some tough things to her and she can say some tough jokes to me. And I can't remember what I said. I think I said something to annoy her. Oh, she's giving me some advice. You know, her advice is, you know, I'm an entrepreneur, so I have tough times. And her advice is always go back to what you're doing. And she says, it pays really well. You know, and I said, not all free advice is good advice. So I think that annoyed her. Yeah, because in her mind, she's trying to help me, you know. And so, and then she said to me, well, I hope you got some nice clothes from that looting in New York City yesterday. And I went off.
And why would you assume that I would loot? No,
exactly.
And because that is not of what the movement is about. I can understand the anger.
I was so pissed.
Destruction and fires and looting. That's not, you going and grabbing armfuls of Jordan is not what the anger, you know. That's
exactly. And I told her, I said, that was in poor taste. You know, I said, I've never stolen a thing in my life. No, would I? And she was I said, if I wasn't black, we just made that comment. She just was totally blindsided by my reaction because I've known her for like 10 years and we do make funny jokes with one another, like sometimes tough ones. And that
one was off. That was definitely off.
Was just, yeah. And so I calmed myself down, you know, because I said, listen, I know she loves me. I know she's not a racist, you know, and then she says, Drake, I have to tell you, since, you know, you are one of the best dressed people I know. So I said it in jest because of your, and so I get it. It wasn't like there was no intent. There was no racist intent. You know, they made some little subtlety behind it. You know, it's not as far as because I'm black. I doubt she would say it to a white person. I really would doubt that she would say that to a white person. But I knew there was no negative intent behind it. And my reaction was so strong. My reaction was over the top to what she said because, you know, because I was getting all these new emotions from, you know, why do I accept when people say these kind of things? You know, and so. And when she said it, because she's never made any type of comment like that ever to me that indicated anything about race at all, you know, like in our whole 10-year friendship. So which just really took me off guard. I think she's, we get mad, you make little silly comments to people, and sometimes you can't take them back, but it was never like a malintent on her behalf, and so I calmed down and we had a conversation about it and we moved past it, and so that's, I think, the point I'm trying to get to. We're going to have differences, but we've got to find a way to move past it, and if you want to make true change, it's got to take place on multi layers, but I have concerns about how what we're trying to achieve is being communicated to people who actually can make the change, because unfortunately Black people listen to Black people, white people listen to white people, and so when it comes to those types of things, because people talk to people that have a similar experience than they do. So if someone similar to them is saying, what, maybe we should do more of this because it really isn't right, you're more likely to listen, than someone saying who you can't relate to necessarily, and I'll force my friends sometimes to walk in the past, to walk a day in my shoes, meaning it's always been a hard time, it's not hard now to get a taxi in New York City. And so I always make my white friends get the taxi for me, and like, okay, let's help our Black friend out, and get him a taxi. I hated it, because I would stand, it was drive by. Then one that really drove me insane, it would be like a white person would go to the corner to get a cab. They would cross the street to pick up the white person, like through traffic to pick up the white person. For me, I'm standing there, there's nothing obstructing them from picking up, and they just keep going. And then people would see me, getting passed by available taxi, which made it even worse. So I would walk down a couple blocks so they wouldn't have to notice I kept being passed by a taxi, open and available taxi, because it's so horribly embarrassing to me. I was like in a suit and stuff, and so, and I mentioned, I lived in a really nice building, but when I was going to my day job, I'd leave around 7 a.m. to go to work. So most people didn't see me. That's
right. You live right around the corner from Bloomingdale's.
Well, I don't give her my address. Let's just say I live in a nice area. So I live in a nice area. So anyways, one of my neighbors who I'd never seen before, I was in a suit on my way going to work. And I do walk fast, and I've always walked fast. And so I was walking down the hall. She goes, ah! I'm like, and I said, what'd you see? Tell me, where is it? I was like, because I'm scared too.
You're so silly.
I'm like, come on. You're in a suit, and everything else.
By like you're gonna rob somebody in the suit.
Yeah. And then like my friend who I love, she, her assembler, and so she made a comment to me because she's a lot of people like older white people like will put groceries they're not gonna pay for it in this big basket and cover it with stuff looks like they've already paid for it, and she just would see them getting away with it all the time. And she just wouldn't make a comment. But since this has happened, that she was behind one older white lady who had been doing the same thing, and she put all these meats and stuff underneath some cupboard and something. They're very clever. They have a whole system, And so like when she took out the groceries, she only put up a few items, not really the more expensive things, underneath.
Mm-hmm.
And so her name is Dawn. And she goes, she mentioned the lady before she's, oh, I see you got some cheeses in there too. Were they on sale? I thought about buying them, but I see you have some. What are they taking them?
Out of people trying to thieve, and you can get away from it. So
but like the Black person, you can't take a pack of gum. Say, hey, what you doing?
Yeah, because you get thrown on the ground and handcuffed, all tied. And it's off the paddy wagon because you got the pack of guns slid down in your basket.
Exactly. So I think what I guess would take me a long way to get around to it is voting is important. We have to.
So that's actually a very good lead-in. One of the things that you move past the anger because you get the anger, you recognize what the anger is. But recognize the true change is going to come on multiple levels. In fact, one of the changes that you are looking for is about voting and the importance of voting.
I mean, it's like a lot of us take a lot of things for granted, not enough of all races. Really young people take a lot for granted. And I don't know the exact, I think this year is the 200th anniversary of I thought equal right to man, one of those big ones, like, when women were first allowed to vote. It's like, it's one of the 201. I have to look it up, but I'll send it to you later. But yeah, and we just, I think, and even I did this, I didn't understand, how much power our elected officials could have on our daily lives until this pandemic happened. These people who may not know anything about my experience are deciding when I can leave my apartment, what's essential, what's not essential, do I need money to eat or not, and we've elected these people, thinking they're going to do the right thing by us, but the reality is they do the right thing by them, based on their personal experiences. So if we don't elect people that can understand where we are and where we want to go, then it's our fault. We have no one else to blame. You just can't continue to be mad if you're not taking actions, to change it. And there's one very famous politician who I love, but my issue with her is I think what she's saying is valid, but she can't seem to convince her colleagues it's also valid. So is she the right person to be, speaking for us? Because if she can't figure out a way, to get her ideas across and paint them as valid to her colleagues, why is she there? She should be like a lobbyist or something, but we need people that can work across the aisle. It can't just be my way or the highway anymore. We just can't do that anymore. You have these people that are just sticking in the ground. No, if you do exactly what I want, I'm not budging. We can't continue to elect that person anymore. We can't continue to elect the fanaticals, that only want one way, because it's just not going to work. We have to meet in the middle. Like, I give you this, you give me that. I'm not so happy about this, but I can work with that. We need that back again, and we just can't focus on what we don't like about something or someone. We have to find ways to work together. And you and I, especially for what you deal with a lot of people that, that probably weren't the happiest person seeing a female Black doctor come and treat their child, but it's like, for me, like, I work with one that I remember her, in this accounting firm. I can't work with music. So, and we're all clustered together, and that's what accounting firms do. They put like 10 people in one little spot.
Exactly, in cubicles, correct. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like this lady, she's older. She's been there for like 15,000 years. Here I come in. I was like, would you mind turning your music down? No.
What about headphones? And like,
she told me to wear headphones. If it was disturbing her, it disturbed me. So, so I could have been nasty and try to do some mean things or whatever. But the cameras, you get caught, so I can't do that. So I said, sometimes you have to find a way to meet. So I just started. People like compliments, and I was this called Marilyn. I said, Marilyn, like, your hair looks really nice today. Really? That perfume's really nice today. Where'd you get that from? Oh, thank you so much for that, for picking up that folder. So I started complimenting her, and then she started lowering the volume to a point where she started wearing headphones.
Wow. So so she knew, and then basically you did how to work with her.
Yep. I showed her that I showed her respect, and I showed her that I could appreciate who she was. And she knew she was wrong. Most people, when they're doing wrong, they know they're wrong. And she said, you know what? He's a nice guy. I don't have to be sure.
Yeah, turn it down.
And just like I had a boss who cursed all the time. He could speak 7 languages. He worked for it's a big executive, big company. And I went to, I said, do you have to curse? I said, I didn't feel guilty because, he's my boss. I can't make you, it's dangerous, to make your boss, feel like they're doing something wrong. Now, you can't say it directly, because then you get fired, but for some reason, I just had a moment because my face shows everything, and so he just would, S this, F that, and so I said to him, I walked in and I said, I'll just call him M. And I said, you speak 7 languages fluently and then 10 others. I said, you can't find other words to describe what you're meaning. He looked at me. His first look was like, "You're fired." But after that, he never cursed around me again. Because he was an intellect. So the fact that I insulted his intellect, or challenged, I didn't insult it, I challenged his intellect. He's like,
come up with better ways to express yourself.
exactly. And so that leads to what also I think needs to change. I love the energy and the passion of our young people. They need to find words that can influence others, to be open-minded. You can't keep using these types of words, to define every potential emotion. If you're upset about something, say, I'm upset about this. Not that bleep bleep did that. Like, what is that? What does that gain you? What are you gaining from that? You have a moment of whatever, but like, is that going to change the scenario? You have to, fine, you want to communicate that with your friends, but if you're having an issue you need to resolve or you want resolved, you have to communicate in a way that is respectful to everyone, and that's something that has to be part of the change. So when you're voting, you're going back to the whole, voting, understand that, the person who might be the most effective for what you're trying to achieve may not have the same skin as you do. So it just can't be, okay, we need more Black people, in this job or visit. Some Black people don't really help other Black people. So, and I'll be honest, for my career, I've mainly been helped by non-Black people. So I don't want people to choose people just based on, their skin. Yes, people need to be in the room, the decision-making room, that have certain, there are multiracial. That's very important because they should have a better understanding of what's that, but that don't mean they're going to care enough. I've been very big on choosing the right person regardless of race. That's been a big thing for me, and yes, I'm sure there are a lot of talented people out there, and people don't realize there are a lot of talented Black people with great, fantastic jobs. I mean, like huge jobs. They don't even know, that they have there's some really, really successful, I don't know how much you've talked about yourself on your own show, but you went from nothing to being a doctor,
Exactly. And the reason that, and who would think me being the goofball I am and having the podcast, and I talked a little bit about it, and I have been adding on to it as of late because, I'm the only person because I'm a single podcaster and I don't really vibe. This is going to be one of a series of interviews that I'm actually doing with other people. And a lot of people would not know that unless you would ask or you would read
exactly.
other platforms.
I mean, you're a shining example of what, I won't say suffering through diversity, but, you just did what you had to do in a respectful, way to achieve your goals, and you're still doing it, and so I get really annoyed with the person who's just mad at the world, a person of color who's mad at the world. I'm like, listen, I know a lot of people that did not have it well growing up as a kid. I know a lot of people, including myself, we deal with a lot of family issues, that we had no control over. But we do have control over our own future. And I'm saying this for people that can do something about it. A lot of kids, unfortunately, they're raised in tough environments where, it is really hard to see a way out. It is a cycle, and I think it's important to vote for people that want to do their best to end that cycle, because not every shining star is going to make it in certain environments, but we need to recognize who those stars are, and they don't have to be a shining star. Every person deserves a chance, and that's, something I keep trying to get across to people. They think that I don't get it because, I can't speak their language, so to speak, but I just want people to understand everyone has a fair shot, and they may not be able to suck it up as much as you and I did to deal with to get there, but, we've got to be able to compromise, on many things, and we're not going to get everything we want. Everything's never going to be fair, but we can take the right steps so that, we can get there, we can empower ourselves again. And the best and only way to do that, to guarantee that, is voting, voting in people that get that, not just who say they're going to do it, people who actually have done it. You know, when you're voting for a new candidate, sometimes you just don't know what they do or not do. You know, but you can look at things in their past, you know, and say, you know what, you know, I don't think you're the guy, you know, or I don't think you're the girl. You know, you might have my same color, you know, but your actions are different, you know, for what we're trying to achieve, you know, and regardless if you're a Republican, whatever, I would just want people to really understand, one, how many people fought for us to have the right to vote. And then secondly, you know, we can truly affect change. You know, we can really, if they really want to affect change, you know, they can truly affect change. Like those people stood in line in Georgia for 6 or 8 hours, some of them stood up, and still didn't get to vote. You know, in the recent Georgia election, you know, the system is set up so that, you know, not everyone who can and should vote can actually vote. You know, that's just how it's set up. You know, so we have to find ways around that, and we have to elect people that want to remove the systematic roadblocks. You know, and there's so many systematic roadblocks which prevent us from being effective citizens when it comes to voting. You know, and that's something I want to highlight. You know, my docuseries I'm trying to get, you know, off the ground, because once you shed a light on it, you know, I'm from the generation, obviously, you know, most people are, you know, I won't say generation, school of thought, seeing is believing. That's what, you know, what brought about all these protests, because seeing is believing. Everyone knew it was happening until they saw it over and over and over and over again. All of a sudden, like, you can't deny it, you know? So that's really something that I'm focused on with my docuseries. Like, I want to show people what real people have to go through, you know, to do the most basic thing, being able to vote. You know, the process of registering. Like, I thought I was registered through a site that works with the New York State, you know, that I know works directly with New York State. And I found out I wasn't even registered. And I know I clicked on it and I said, okay, boom. You know, so those little things. So if I thought I was registered and I went to go to the voting booth, you know, assuming I was, no, you're not in the system. I'm like, what do you mean? I know I registered. You know, so it's these little things, you know, that you have to follow up on, you know.
And not a lot of people
will do that.
Will do actually that, or didn't know. They thought they were.
Exactly.
Or they thought they were ineligible to register or vote because
Exactly.
of little things like Snoop Dogg said he hadn't voted in years because he thought his misdemeanors that he committed almost 20 years ago precluded him from being allowed to register. Those little things. Or just having the presence of a cop car. Did you hear about this too? In some neighborhoods in the inner city, they have cop cars at places where people are voting as an act of deterrent to keep people back. Because
I know that. I haven't heard about that. You know, and it's
yeah,
really
that's something complete. Yeah, but I've heard.
Yeah. So I always get, you know, for me, I become very wary of those things. I need to see things to believe it, because people make up stuff all the time. You know, so for good and bad reasons, you know, so I'm always very wary until I actually see it, you know, and that's a shame, because a lot of things, you know, you can't record. You have to bring your phone with you everywhere. I don't bring my phone with me everywhere. Sometimes I think, well, now maybe I should, because something happens to me, you know, who's going to believe me, you know? But I'm of the belief I need to see it, you know, to believe in it. And that's a shame. That's the world we live in. We want to take people at face value, but as you know, sometimes we just can't, because they have their own agendas. Yeah, and on both sides of or all sides of like the color rate, you know, the races, you know, people have their own agendas, you know, and so unfortunately, seeing is really believing, you know, and it's a shame, you know, actually, you know, because you want to take people at face value when they are afflicted by an atrocity just based on their skin type of thing. You want to be able to take them at their word, you know, but. You just don't know people's motivations today, you know, and people send me stuff all the time. Like, look, they said this. I said, but you know, this person's lying or not?
Exactly.
You don't know what their motivation is for saying this, you know, and we've just seen it too many times, you know, and that's the sad part about where we are, because, you know, our trust in people in general, or our distrust in people in general, is kind of validated. Like, the world that I grew up in, I don't think it actually really existed. Yeah, but that's my mindset though, you know, is I still take people at face value until they prove otherwise. You know, that's just who I am. I can't be someone else. You know, I'm not a skeptic, you know, but I'm more cautious now. just, taking your word face value. But I will take your word face value for the first time, and if you prove me wrong, then I'm done,
Exactly.
Because we still have to give people a chance. And sometimes people mess up. They do mess up, we all mess up, and that's this whole process, and so I went on and on with the same thing. But my biggest point that I want to make is vote for who you think, shares your core values and what you actually want to get done. You may not have a plan, in your mind about how to affect change, but the person you're voting for should have a plan of how to affect change, and their plan may not be perfect, but it should relate to what you want done or change in our society. That's who you should vote for. Not just because they're giving some lip service, but actually look to see what they've done. Because a lot of things you can find online now about people, you can see if they've actually done anything, to show they care about that particular cause, before they ask you for your vote, to represent them, for your local, and state and federal governments. Because, and like I said earlier, and with this pandemic, they can affect what we can do every single day. I lived in New York for years, and I didn't know that, we never had a curfew or whatever those things were, and it was, I'm like, and I think nightlife is essential. That's my business, working entertainment, but, the governor doesn't,
Yeah.
So I moved here. A lot of people moved here because, yes, we work hard, we have a good life, it's really expensive, but we also had a fantastic entertainment life in New York City. We have access to so many versions of entertainment. It was incredible. You could do so many things in one day and still have so much more to do. Now there's absolutely nothing. There's absolutely nothing. Entertainment value. Nothing we can do. So why am I working so hard to be here? This tiny little apartment, angry people, and I can't do anything. And so it's health-wise, yes, we did a lot of things we have to do to protect ourselves, but it's it's just really shown me that the people we place in office, they really have to have something about their core that relates to not just them, but the people around them that may be different from them. Do they have the ability to be apathetic to people that they don't know, but they're also representing, to what they're going to. And that's who I personally want to elect. People will vote for, people for their own reasons, and whatever they are, I'm pushing you just to find out what they are. And if that's who you want in office, so be it. That's your right. Every American citizen, that is your right. But be empowered by what we've been given and taken for granted for such a long time.
And on that note, and just to summary to make sure I have this correct, voting is a basic right. But it is what you want the audience to know is you need to educate and understand who you're voting for and what their plan to affect that change. And also because of the obstacle course just to get to vote, from absentee ballot, from
Exactly.
making sure you are registered, and knowing what that process is, knowing where, if you are registered, where are you supposed to go to vote?
Exactly.
It's going to take planning.
Exactly. And there are forces, hoping there's a second wave, so to speak, to add another roadblock to people being able to vote. So we have to be, me as a media person, has to help these people, navigate those roadblocks, because it's just going to get tougher as we get closer to the election date in November, and it's going to get muddier. Untruths are going to be out there, about.
Because it's irresponsible for us to have this plan and not use it to affect change and affect good. So we have to be accurate, and we have to
accurate and fair. Accurate is the most important thing. Whether or not someone will agree with you, but we have to share accurate information that everyone can use, that everyone can verify, and so they can make the right decisions for them.
Cool.
And then act on them,
Oh, and just to follow up, it is the 200th anniversary of Susan B. Anthony, her birthday was in February, and it's 100 years since the passing of the 19th Amendment that gave women.
Yeah, it was 100. Yeah, that's what I wanted. Yeah, it's 100. Yeah,
That's it. That's what we're celebrating, the centennial
yeah,
celebration of
yeah,
the
yeah.
19th
Yeah, that was supposed to actually be in June, and there was a big thing happening in June in New York for that, but all that got canceled. Yeah, because I was going to be working on that. Yeah, but all that got canceled because of COVID. Yeah, because that's a really big, highlighted. I think the first place where, and I could have this wrong, one of the first places where a woman could vote was in Wyoming. So I have to look that up. Yeah, but I think that's actually accurate. And why Wyoming? I love asking those kind of questions,
So thank you so much. I'm going to actually go ahead and so this next segment is made me realize several things. Number one, I didn't realize just how melodic my cousin's voice was. And I can truly see that he has that announcer or actor grade voice. But this is just me, and I know I'm biased. But I also realized that how cool my friends are, and it always makes me wonder why I have such cool friends. Um, this next segment is, I call it Janelle's word, because she doesn't say a whole bunch, and realistically we may talk just a couple of times a year. We may basically communicate by text and emojis, etc. But still waters run deep. She is a African American mother living in Northern Virginia, 2 kids, a boy and a girl, a husband who she's been married to for a number of years, who I was in her wedding, and how she is navigating all of this. Both she and her husband are teleworkers. When school stopped, she still is responsible for continuing the education of her kids, and then processing COVID, and then processing George Floyd, his death being portrayed on TV. And she completely agrees how we basically viewed a snuff film, which is illegal in the 50 states and the contiguous United States, as well as in Alaska and Hawaii, and all of the U.S. territories. But we witnessed this, and how this is different, and how, as a mother, as George Floyd called out for his mother, how she was able to process it. Heartbreaking as it was to me, and I don't have kids, and she has a teenage son. She verbalizes what a lot of African American women, professional women, have to do and navigate and straddle every day, as being the advocate for their children, and how that perception is misconceived. How you can still be a professional, but people will still try to punk you and think you're not going to defend their kids. And that we, the Black mothers, are not going to teach their kids right from wrong. I think she basically verbalizes that frustration so much better than any of us could. And it is the talk we actually had was probably the longest we've had in a very long time, and how even in our friendship, how it is going to, how COVID has changed that. What is the new norm now, and how we're going to do some of the things that we love to do. Can't travel, but we can still gripe about the Cowboys versus the Deadskins. I'm just saying they may be changing their name. I don't know, but that's neither here nor there. So, without further ado, now you're going to hear the conversation between myself and my best friend Janelle. And it's this segment. I'm so glad I got the opportunity to chat with her. Janelle's work. This computer. All right. So when I realized I'm going to have to edit for time, because I spoke to my cousin that lives in Manhattan. This is not Viva, but my male cousin.
Okay.
Yesterday. And I consider him a creative. We're very different in the content, our content. This is the same dude that wanted to say whatever he wanted to on my show, but he wanted to keep it on the DL because he has all these quote unquote contacts, and he didn't want to mess up his potential about offending any potential clients. And I'm like, no, it ain't that type of game, bro. And you want me to pay you, bitch? No. This is family, but he's my cousin. He's like my first cousin. This is Ronette's brother. I don't think you've ever met him. So
I've never.
So, but it's interesting to realize what his perspective of everything that's been going on for the last couple of weeks. And first of all, has it felt to you, because you've been going through a lot, we just talked about all the shit you've been going through for the last several weeks, getting the house ready for closing, etc. But has it just felt like Groundhog's Day, a never-ending drama for you? How has it felt? I mean, beyond being on lockdown since March, how has it felt for you?
You know, it has, I guess, kind of felt like a Groundhog Day, but then it's also because my husband is very into CNN. I mean, not CNN. Yeah, CNN 24/7. So it's like you're constantly being bombarded with the images over and over again. So, you know, you were trying to process it, but also I have children, and through their little social media outlets are getting snippets of however children and TikTok deliver the message. So it's kind of like you're trying to temper it about processing your feelings about literally seeing a man dying on screen.
It was a snuff film. It was a snuff film.
Yeah. So processing that for yourself, processing your emotions, and then trying to have that conversation with your kids, because how they're getting the message through their little social media, you know, friends or the apps that they use, you know, and then even taking it further in the reactions to the riots, and, you know, going from the peaceful protesting here in DC, seeing peaceful people during the day, and then basically call them what they are. You can't say that they were about George Floyd at 11 o'clock at night trying to, better lack of a word, maim buildings in DC. So you know, and Dwight and I had that discussion, and he was just like, you know, how is this representing, you know, getting justice? And I said, it's not. I said, this is people out here taking advantage of his name. You know, this is not about protest. This is about people. And I said, and COVID probably played a lot into it. I said, because we have been locked up since March. I said, so this is just people getting out that energy from being locked, but just wanting to do bad things and just wanting to be in the street. This has nothing to do with trying to get justice for him. When you're out there at 11 o'clock at night, setting trash cans on fire and throwing frozen water bottles at the police. So, you know, you're
and I get, and I'm right there with you, because there's always going to be people that are in the mayhem just to be in the mayhem.
Right.
And you gotta separate those fools from what, and keep in the forefront of your mind what happened, what is really going on, and then how we proceed. They're just always going to be a very, sometimes a large group of people that just want to fuck shit up. They don't care about the cause. They just want to screw things up.
Right.
And then the message gets lost, because what people do see is entire downtowns look like Kristallnacht when the Nazis went on a rampage, or the Watts riots 1 and 2 after Rodney King, and then back in the 60s, you know. So yeah.
And then I don't know if you saw the footage of Minneapolis when you call them looters, looted the Target, but like the reporter like walked right up into Target with them as the people were looting, and I'm like,
and they have them on tape taking shit.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. I said, so basically, I know, freedom of speech, it's your right. You're saying you're trying to get the information out to the people, but I'm like, you are feeding into this. You basically you're broadcasting the bullshit. Stop giving these people their 10 minutes. I'm like, you're up in the Target with people who took the time to get a Target shopping cart and strolling through the bitch like you're shopping. I'm like, so do you not realize the long-term effect that tomorrow that's where you would go to try to find your wipes or your masks or, that meat or something that you needed to keep your household going? And what are you doing about, you're just devastating your economy more because where are these people supposed to go for their jobs now?
Nowhere. They can't. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere. Oh my God, it's nowhere to go. And did y'all have the same thing in Woodbridge? What was going on up there, if anything?
We here in Woodbridge, they did have peaceful protests. And we have I guess a parkway that kind of connects the whole county. So they were marching peacefully up and down the parkway. But in Manassas, which is about 20 minutes from me, their protests turned a little more into kind of the riot type situations. But again, they were peaceful during the day, but as soon as nightfall came, you had that element that came out and turned it into something totally different and wanted to be confrontational with the police officers. And like I was telling my mom, I was like, if you've lived in Prince William County any time, it's always been kind of like that racist undertone anyway. And I was like, the people, I said, people should know, living in Prince William County, you don't kind of fuck with these police because they on almost on the left side of crazy anyway. So I said, to me, when it kind of comes to kind of any racial issue, I said, that's almost like pouring gasoline on a fire. I mean, but luckily it didn't escalate to anything, but it became not about the movement at that point. It became whatever people wanted to turn it into after nightfall.
They had in Fayetteville, they looted the JCPenney in that dying Cross Creek Mall. And then right after everything calmed down, a few days later, JCPenney announced that they're closing the store in Lumberton, Fayetteville, and Raleigh. And I think another one in Durham. So I'm like, you shooting shit at yourself in the foot. They already closed down Sears a couple of years ago, and all those anchor stores. The next one is Macy's. They're not going to be able to stay. So, but were you ever afraid? I mean, because I don't know, I have always, I had those discussions with my mom and even to a certain extent, my father, when I did talk to him. You take the stance how you drive. Like, I don't drive at night because number one, my night vision is off. But you keep your hands at the 10 and 2. If you ever get pulled, don't make any sudden moves. But I was actually, even though I haven't gone out a lot, I have never felt as afraid since I left Kentucky. I don't know if I told you a lot about, because I despise Kentucky, but I remember even them following me in my truck until I got to the hospital. And it's an incident that I had in that hospital. So I've never felt, it's been a really long time since I've actually just felt like I wasn't gonna go outside anyway because of COVID, but now people, you really can't trust anybody, because they caught it on tape again. They caught it killing this man, and they caught him crushing his throat, and they keep playing it and playing it and playing it. And I'm like, if you look at this and don't feel some kind of way, that means, are we so desensitized to violence? But I was absolutely scared. Uh-oh, you went on mute.
Oh, because my husband was sitting up here calling me. Sorry. No,
Okay.
yeah, but you know, like I said before, I was okay. I was in the wrong. It was like dark and rainy, and the intersection I was at, you really couldn't tell. I didn't swing wide enough to go into the right lane, so I was on the wrong side of the road. So when I did realize, I did a quick U-turn in the road and came back around and made the right turn to get on the right side of the road. Well, and it's a bar in the shopping mall or area that I did this by. So of course, Prince William PD was right behind me as soon as I did that, and you know, and I think I was on the phone with Dwight, and then I was like, Dwight, I said he's gonna pull me over, and as soon as I said that, he hit the lights, and Dwight was like, "Are you scared?" I was like, "Well," I said, "Nobody really likes to get pulled over by the police ever." I said, "But." I said, I'm not drunk or whatever he thinks. I said, it was just an honest mistake. I said, you know. So I said, you know, and he walked up to the window. What do you know? That whole routine. What are you doing out tonight? And I said, well, I was on my way to Burger King and hit that intersection wrong and realized I was on the wrong side of the road. Gosh, yeah, because you did a quick U-turn. I said, well, what else was I going to do? Or I'd have been going into oncoming traffic. So he was like, well, have you been drinking? No. He said, oh, where are you on your way to? I was like, Burger King. Wow. Okay. Well, you know, there's a bar. I said, yeah, I'm well aware of what I said. No, but you know, I'm thinking, well, talking to me, do I sound drunk? You know, but you don't get smart or whatever. So
Even that could be, it depends on which cop, even that could be misconstrued as getting smart.
So, but I mean, the history of the police force here in my county, I mean, you know, we are what, one generation from them good old boys. So you and kind of see how they treated this whole ruckus. Remember that, gosh, was it 10 years ago when everybody really started kind of cracking down on Hispanics? So they had that little ban here in this community or this county about Hispanics. If you weren't legal or any Hispanic, I guess they determined they could pull you over and da 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 da. So you had Hispanic population scared, but you know, that little thing kind of seemed to extend to any brown skinned people. And if you already kind of had that underline that y'all racist anyway, so you know, any experience with the police here, you kind of feel like,
And it could go either way. I still remember I wasn't, was I a teenager or 12, 13? I can't remember when my uncles came home. They had been out, I don't know, wilding or doing whatever they did back in the day in Norfolk, Virginia, and how they had gotten shit beat out of them by the Norfolk police. This was the days before Rodney King and et cetera. So, and I remember one of the superintendents, like from my grandmother's church, coming, and I don't know of anything, whatever happened with that, but I do know they were literally, I can still see them, how young they were and how brutalized that they were. And on top of that, they also said the cops that gave you the worst whippings were Black cops.
Oh gosh.
So the police force at that time reflected the community that they served, but they were more brutal than the white cops. It was like they had something more to prove to be a part of that fraternity.
Well, you know, and I think I heard on TV one of the reporters was saying that, and I guess that they were talking about that aspect, that if it was more, do we need more of brown skinned police officers? And someone made the point and said, well, you know, kind of what you said some, not all, but some of, you know, if you get African American police officers, sometimes they try to prove to that blue brotherhood that they are more blue than brown. And to your point, and sometimes they can be more vicious than a white cop.
I don't know. I know my blood pressure and heart rate always goes up if I catch even a glimpse of the Georgia PD, Georgia State Troopers in my rearview mirror. And that's why even now, I'm almost underneath the speed limit in my truck because I do not want to be pulled. I can't.
Right.
No, I'm not going to be able to do that.
Right.
And it was just my when I had my Mustang, that was just a setup. That was just they gonna pull me just to get a look inside. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And I was never. I never went the speed limit even then too. So I was still driving like I was driving Miss Daisy. I'm like, girl, bye.
Yeah.
But
sometimes it seems like the vehicle you drive. Even I think. Even when Dwight had a motorcycle, it was more the perception of a motorcycle. So it's like you become more of a target. Even like you said, even if you drive it like Miss Daisy, still it's the perception of what you're driving, the color of your skin. Eventually you're gonna do something wrong. So let me stay behind you.
Exactly. And as the guy going 150 miles an hour in the Hyundai,
Weaving in and out of traffic, and it's always when you see that where are the cops now? Why this guy riding everybody's bumper, speeding in and out of traffic?
If you get too close to me and I make a sudden stop, you're gonna end up underneath the truck.
Right.
Because I better lift on it. So I'm just saying. But on a real tip, I mean, going back to the last couple of weeks, and one of the things that people have struck on right before George Floyd stopped moving, he called out to his mom. And I don't think I remember hearing that because I could not watch it all the way through. I saw most of it up to the point, and then when he stopped moving, but I did not hear that. I just realized, one of the things I realized when they finally did roll him on his side, how lax his neck was. And I was like, they snapped his neck. Oh my God. That was the first thing. I went right back to MD mode, hospital. You take the girl out the hospital, but you can't take the hospital out the girl. That's the first thing I thought. I'm like, they've snapped his neck. Oh my God. And we have that. I just, yeah. But that tripped me out. But did you hear that part, and how did that make you feel?
I was like you. The only footage I could digest was, and even when it initially came out, and it was like you saw the knee on his neck, and it was just like, they're talking about, he died at the hands, and I'm like, well, how could you not tell? I said, the look on his face is pure distress, so looking at that and not getting him past the, I didn't even see the point where they said his nose started bleeding and, and then him begging for mercy or calling his mom. But when I heard that part, I mean, that just kind of breaks your heart, because, any mother that has a heart for her children, when that is when your children are desperate, when they start, mama,
Exactly.
So
how old they are. Yeah.
To get a grown man, and they said his mother had passed like 2-3 years ago.
Yep.
So I said, somebody is in dire straits when they start calling for mama. And and not to make it a religious thing but I hope that in that moment, that his mother was there comforting him, kind of guiding him, you want to say, to the light, because I think maybe is that why he was calling his mother, because he saw her at that moment. But you just feel that that's a desperate cry when a kid, grown man, anybody, when you start calling for mama, things have gone seriously wrong.
And how it affected I think it affected everybody that was watching, and they couldn't help him, but it didn't change jackass boy that was still kneeling on him, or the guys that were holding him, or the cop that was trying to keep the crowd away, trying to keep that shit covered up. I don't have any kids, and I'll never have children.
Mm-hmm.
And when they said that, I'm like, and I really believe, like you said, he was calling out to her. He was in distress, but I honestly think he was calling out to her because she was there, and he was trying to guide him. And then silence. So
well, yeah, because that's, and that's how kind of, how you reconcile it to have peace with it. Because, being a mother, if a child is that desperate, they get into that mode of hurt or thinking they're hurt. And what have you heard most mothers say? You see most mothers do. You're all right, baby. It's okay. You're all right. Mama's here with you,
Mm-hmm.
So you hope in that moment that his mom was there with him, which I believe she was, and telling him, it's okay. Mama's got you. Come on.
And then he was able to, it was a wrap, and he was able to, I just think, but at the same time, I get the rage about why people, every state and everybody expresses pain and grief differently. I can understand the rage, and I'm like, well, things have been building for a while and they just imploded. And I think with being shelter in place or forced to shelter in place, and some people having nowhere to go for years, because this is just a culmination of decades of bullshit, so I understand the explosion. I understand the frustration, but you just can't. And I understand how it was so disturbing, and I got so angry. I vacillated, sadness, anger, all at the same time. I felt at one point, I really felt like I was going crazy. I know I'm crazy. I get it. But the wide range of emotions just in the moment and the subsequent days and then after that, and having to process it. I'm like, people are still wilding out. For years, they just wilding out and doing shit. And even after
Hold on, Felicia. Hold on.
Okay.
All right.
And I was basically saying, even after, that was released, and then we got the stuff from Austin and then Oklahoma, you can't breathe, we don't care. That kind of callousness. They knock over a 75-year-old protester, bust him in the head. He got a brain injury. Well, his lawyers said, so they suing the city.
Right.
My uncle, and then uncles, like all of that stuff. And people have been doing the same shit. Why not? Why isn't, and then the country, the entire world seemed like it was on fire. They're still pulling down Confederate statues. They're finally taking down the flag. And I'm like, well, what's taking y'all so long? What took y'all so long? Did we have to set everything on fire for y'all to pay attention to us? But then we got to be clear on what the message is. So,
and a sidebar. And then Deborah posted about those auction stones in Fredericksburg. And again, I'm too bad there 4 years and kind of, the history, but was still clueless. Did you ever see those stones downtown?
I think I tripped over those stones downtown.
Oh.
I don't have any pictures of it because I kind of blocked.
Because she and I was like, okay. I was like, I've been downtown. I think enough. I said, but I'm not surprised. I never saw them, but I'm like, nothing surprises me about Fredericksburg.
Didn't we actually? They take us by there when we came back for one of our first reunions. I think that was one of the stops on the tour after Washington's house. I vaguely remember them passing by it, and somebody pointed out, it wasn't a part of may not have been a part of the tour, but somebody else on the bus pointed it out. So.
Oh.
But it's like, and here, like Market Square, right in Fayetteville.
Yeah.
And the guy set it on fire, you know. I realized out of a lot of the places that I've worked, because I've always worked in the country, like in the South, even in Florida, there has always been some, and definitely in South Carolina, North Carolina, there's always some type of remembrance and about the Civil War, the other side, Confederacy, that it was just there. And I'm a NASCAR fan. They talk about the flag, the rebel flag. I'm like, yeah, we know, but it took y'all this long, and they had to set some shit on fire and throw some statues in the drink for y'all to finally take that flag. Yeah, okay. So I just like, what took y'all so long? You can actually be cognizant of history and not have to rewrite history without having those blatant celebration of a rebellion and of slavery and of the Kluxers and what does all that mean? Because, you know, that's what I think of when I see the flag.
Right.
And that flag in particular, I think of they come in to lynch somebody, something's gonna burn, that kind of stuff. That is what I think. And this is 2020, and I still think that.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that looks too close to it, like I look at the Tennessee flag, I'm giving that the side eye. It kind of looks way too close to that flag. I love Tennessee. Chattanooga's like Atlanta. It's like Chattanooga and the rest of the state. It's
Right.
like Atlanta and the rest of the state. But I think that is how you look at all of that and having to process that much. It's just a lot. It's just been so much.
But seeing that, and you know, and I think it's an important step to remove the symbolism. But symbolism is just that, symbolism. But
Right.
it's, you've got to change the attitude and hearts and minds. So you can remove as many statues as you want. If Bubba's racist today, he gonna be racist whether that statue is there or not.
Exactly.
So you know, and especially with me with children, is, you know, and you know, you can't fault your children, but I think we've tried to, most parents have tried to raise their kids where they don't see color, or they're so used to being in schools with just so many mixtures and varieties and flavors and shades and colors of people that kids kind of do see kids as just other kids. But then, as you know, but then when something jumps off and the administration is still that old school white whatever, or, you know, the mentality, it's always like the black, brown kid's fault. And, you know, and then parents of whoever, of Becky, want to jump on the kid. And I said, but you know what? And that's what I had to tell my son, who has gone through a couple of episodes at, you know, kind of his predominantly white school, that, you know, Miles, I know you interact with these kids truly on the friend level. I said, but when you get in trouble and if administration tries to take action or another parent is trying to point fingers, I said, that parent, your administration is kind of like my generation, which is still feeding off of that racism. So I said, that's how I look at any situation that you're in, because that's a kind of the comment, oh, Mom, why do you always think I said, because to me, the adults on that level, and that's how they're dealing with it, are more than likely coming with some bias, some racist about some. I said, so that's how, in my mind, I have to combat when you get in trouble or somebody tries to reprimand you. I got to make sure you are experiencing a fair playing field.
Exactly. And so do you think they handle it from that standpoint? It sounds like you think that they handle it well, or do you think they grasp the full dimension, or Miles grasp the full dimension of white privilege? And do you think you need to actually have that conversation with them?
You know what? I know, and on some level, you know, I think he realizes that the kids that he goes to school with are, some of them try to be like on the upper echelon, whatever. But truly, when he, you know, so the couple of run-ins he had, and actually the one run-in that he had, the girl was biracial, but the mama was white, and it was over. They have like student IDs, and he and the little girl liked each other, so they exchanged their student IDs because they have like their picture on it. Well, his other little friend was at school in the hallway with the girl, and for some reason, whatever, was trying to say he was trying to get Miles's ID back from the girl. Well, the girl's mama was there and like went batshit crazy on on Miles's friend. But his mother happened to be there, and Miles's friend is black, so his mother happened to be at the school too. And she's like, she jumped in the middle, and then she came back to me and, well, you need to find out about this, because she was threatening to go to the administration because she was like, you know, Miles stole her daughter's card, and she thinks it's their lunch card. And so then the little girl flipped and told his mother that she had it like in her wallet on her desk, and that they had like a common class, and that he took it out of her wallet, and but it was probably just by mistake. So
But they
kids are so dumb.
Really?
Yes, she's saying all this in text messages, and I went there and went the hell off on Miles, and I said, so this little girl. I said, well, her mother, I said, is trying to go to the administration and say that you stole this little girl's card. He's just like, Mom, we exchanged it. I said, well, I know what you did. I said, because you had this card like since before Christmas, a little bit before. So I said, I know you didn't steal it. I said, but girlfriend is trying to tell her mom. So she's texting. Well, the mom starts texting her, why are you telling your mom to steal it? She's like, well, because my mom is crazy, and if I tell her the truth, she's going to be mad at me, and blah, blah, blah. And then she's telling my son, just take the blame. It'll be okay. I said, oh no, Miles. I said, oh no. I said, for once, I said, you glad that Big Mouth Miss Tiffany was somewhere? I said, because usually she all up in the middle of something instigated. But I was like, well, luckily, I said, because probably I would not have heard this and been able to nip it in the bud. But then I texted their principal and told her what was going on. And I was like, and I've gone through my son's phone. I said, and I have text messages from her where she's taken photos of his ID long before this incident. And I said, and she's kind of dumb. I said, because she took pictures of them in class with the IDs that day that she tried to accuse him of stealing it or telling her mom. So long story short, I went up to the school today. I said, well, I'm gonna nip this in the bud, and I said, I'm gonna jump her mama to the punch. I said, because my neighbor said she tried to offer her my phone number so we could deal with it, but she was like adamant. She just wanted to come straight to the administration. And I said, well, see, Miles, this is a lesson. Who you call friends? I said, but look how her mother reacted. I said, and she, and I said, I kind of look at when children are biracial, if it's a black man, white woman, the white woman still kind of has that white mentality, even though she has a black man. I said, look how she didn't want to squash it between parents. She wanted to go right to the administration. I said, so if Miss Tiffany hadn't been there kind to circumvent to tell me what was going on, I said, they probably could have jumped you, pulled you at school, administration, you getting there, they start double talking, you'd have said who to God knows what. And I said, by the time I probably hadn't got involved, it would have been too late. I said, so, this is a lesson. You choose, be careful who you call your friend. I said, but see also how the process and the system works.
And you have to tell your kids this way too soon. How old was Miles? Isn't he 14?
It's
15?
14. So yeah, it happened. Yeah.
Wow.
I said, but see, Miles, see how she lied on you? I said, but right on your phone,
you got the truth.
She has been text messaging you about, she taking photos of your little photo ID. I said, and then she's really dumb because y'all sat there and took pictures with the damn photo IDs that day that she tried to. So I said, so nobody's mama is that damn crazy that she couldn't show us. He was like, well, Mom, she was just afraid because she kept saying her mother thought it was the lunch card. I was like, okay, Miles. I said, if you've lived in Prince William County any point of time, I said, you get a damn lunch card when you start kindergarten. You know your damn lunch card is totally different from your school ID. I said, so please, her mama can't be that dumb. Or if she is that dumb, then she should have never had children because I don't even know how you deal with that.
And it goes back to, racism and people, and the first thing she'll probably say, oh, I'm not a racist. It has nothing to do with that. But
and then she would point, my husband, my husband is Black. So how can I, but you can, because why was your first response when you had a parent there offering, and even if you did think it was your daughter's lunch card, if you had a parent there offering to give you, I know his mother, let me give you her phone number, she can help you settle this. So why was your first response? No, he was just wrong, and you're going to go to the principal and get him in trouble. So if it was all about you just getting the card back because you thought it was her lunch card and she had money on it,
and that's
any other parent would say, well, I can give you his, and she's like, and I told her that you're very responsive. You're not like one of those type of mothers to be like, whatever. But she refused to take your phone number and just wanted to go to the principal. I said, well, you know what? I said, well, I handle her ass. I said, because, I said, I am active. And I said, and I was the one that went through his phone. I said, and I got the jump on her ass. I said, so hopefully she, and then the principal wrote me back and was like, oh my God, I said, her mother was so, I guess almost like embarrassed. I said, well, and I said, she should be because, I said, my neighbor offered her a solution to squash this without even coming to you. I said, but she wanted to press the point. And I said, I guess she thought that Miles had parents that weren't paying attention, or I don't know what she thought, but she thought she was going to come in there and tell her story and then make him the bad guy. I said, but she found that I had been up at the school 8 o'clock and trumped her ass before she could even get up there. I guess she would be embarrassed.
Mm-mm. And that's another thing too. You're gonna make me go all the way out of the way. I have to go to work. I still have to work, but I'm up here dealing with this foolishness that we could have squashed without me having. That's crazy. That is crazy. Again, you need to be throat punched for wasting my time. Exactly. It is absolutely asinine. So, anywho, but with that said. So now that he's safe, and that was definitely before they got on lockdown, and now since it is extended and it effectively ended their school year, how are you as an introvert handling all of this? With all of this shit going on, you'll have to interact with the outside, and you got to shelter. If you're an introvert, but you still got a shelter in place with your family, are you ready to sell your kids off and your husband too?
You know what? And the kids have not been as bad as I thought they would be. And hats off to teachers, because trying to teach 2 kids like virtually and you really have to be involved, that is like total bullshit. And, when you see people that always complain that, oh, people are just treating school as daycare or whatever. Not that you're trying to teach it at daycare, but I was like, people who have teachers that are teachers have a certain skill set, because trying to keep them online virtually and all that was some total bullshit. And if it comes down to this fall, I was like, I don't know how parents are going to do it. But
how have they made any plans to get them back in school, or are they going to do a rotation? Or they handing out new equipment because they don't think they're going to be able to get them back in school in September or August?
The governor came out with a plan, I think on Tuesday, to say right now their intention is to have in-person school come August, but they are watching the situation and they will follow, I guess, the guidance, of the CDC and experts. And the closer we get, they will make the decision. But their first plan is to plan accordingly, like regular, go to school in person. But they will come up with different alternatives, like, some in person, a phased approach or whatever. But it's still a lot to work through. And just reading it was, as a parent, I was confused and thinking, well, you still don't answer the questions about, well, in school they would say, oh, they did the standard, 6 feet apart, and we'll eliminate some things that, cause the social gathering or whatever. But I'm thinking, well, how are you going to transport them on a bus? Because if you have, what can a bus hold? 40, 45 kids?
Something like
How
that.
do you social distance 45 kids 60 feet apart on a bus? So I was like, so you didn't talk about the transportation aspect. I know you can't expect parents to drive kids to school. So I was like, it's still like a lot of unanswered questions. And people are like, yeah, you say that, how are you going to keep kids 6 feet apart? Because if they have friends that they haven't seen since March,
they're going to be like the Golden Girls hopping like that across the street. They're going to be in little gangs and just doing that. No, that's not going to work.
So, again, and Dwight and I were talking about it because he was like, he has a lot of use or lose. And it kind of like in his mindset, he's trying to like use it all right around when we move. And I was like, moving is a big deal, but it's not that big of a deal. I was like, you need to concentrate on probably keeping your time until we hear what the plan is for school. I was like, because first of all, if it is virtual, in the beginning and probably all the way through the process, I was like, they've been good about getting on the computer now and talking with their teachers. I said, but in Prince William County, it was optional. So I said, they know it really didn't count towards anything. I said, but if it's for real, I said, one of us is going to have to be in the house to make sure that they are focusing on that computer.
Yeah.
So I said, so I see not only their school, but probably a kind of like our work pattern they're going to have to change and kind of coincide with their schedules for a while.
And with his post-concussive head injury, short-term memory, how is that going to work? Unless you give, does he respond to you basically spelling shit out and on schedule and you have to, and step by step, or does he get frustrated with that and he just goes his own way?
It's basically like having a third child. I would just have to tell him specifically what his role is, what he's supposed to be doing, what he has to help the children do. But it's also explaining to the children, if you want to deal with your dad as little as possible, I need you to do X, Y, and Z and do it yourself. And just have him as that quote unquote supervision. I said, but if you don't want him in your face, then you better, I'm giving you a schedule too.
It's like a project. Your certification, PMP certification, is going to be coming in because I can see it. Schedule list. That
was my joke for when all this began. I'm waiting for Prince William County to send me my W-2 around tax time because this is no joke.
I don't see how, and you have 2 older kids, the families that have multiple children, different age groups, and it is crazy. So hats off to y'all for real though, but they really do need to stroke that W-2 for real.
But the majority of their teachers were very good and did have like a Zoom lesson every week and constantly sending them emails. And I was like, I love y'all and appreciate y'all, but y'all is loading up my email box with this stuff for the kids. I can't.
And I know it has to do with monitoring, but have you set up their personal Gmail, or are the teachers instructed to send it through the parents?
Oh no, they've set up a Microsoft 365 accounts for the kid. That's how they do their work, through Teams and the what is it, programs or whatever else they have up there. So that
Microsoft Teams. I'm going to experiment with that. I'm going to send you an invite. You better answer it back too.
So they some of the teachers did Zoom, some of the teachers went through Teams, and then they had all those task project folders, whatever you have in 365. So they would give them work through there, and they could work through and then review it with the teacher during their review. There's allotted review time, but it was just I said, but Prince William County messed up because early on, off the bat, they told them, after they decided they were never ever going back to school for this school year, told them your grades of right now is as is. So, if you got an A, you got an A. And if, you C or below, if you want to do better, the teachers will work with you to get your grade up. But you can't tell a teacher, you can't tell kids school is over and then say that, getting online is optional. Because for a 14-year-old, my son was like, oh, it's a wash. School is over.
He was like, who's this? And video games.
Right. It's like, Mom, why are you trying to make me do these Zoom? Why? What? School is over. This is all optional. I said, that's where Prince William County made their mistake, because the other counties around us, kids, it was that their time online was considered instructional time and counted. So kids literally had to get up and act like they were in school. And I think Prince William County didn't do it because, again, they didn't have all the kids didn't have all the resources, where the other counties automatically give students, I think when they go into 6th grade, like their own laptops, which Prince William County doesn't do. But they just put out a letter, I guess, from the school board that they are shifting funding to buy every eligible student, blah, 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 computer. So I guess they're hoping to get them back in school long enough to give them this computer. So if they do have to have virtual learning in the fall, that they can do that. But I was like, boy.
But they do realize that Rona has no seasonality to it. They were expecting the numbers to actually go down now that it was getting hot. It's not like the flu. It's not like RSV. This is a scourge or a plague that is year long. So,
again, you and I were talking about the open houses or appointments of showings we were having in my house, and then how when the numbers started going back up, I'm like,
Because it's been like summer here since March or April. So the heat is not going to kill this bitch.
And I think Fauci said that the summer temperatures are not having an effect the way people thought they would. So summer means, look, Rona, like, I'm vacationing with y'all too.
Exactly. Still cancel vacation.
So yeah, and then by August, I guess you might really see that second wave earlier because of what? We've gone Memorial Day, you've seen the spikes from the riots and the protests, all the people out there not covered up. You're probably going to see a spike from that. We're rolling into 4th of July. You're going to see a spike from that. So.
That's one of the things you can plan to do. You can actually have a social distancing. You said you close on your new home at the beginning of July. You said July 6th or 4th?
6th.
The 6th. Okay, so you'll still be but you'll be shutting that down and packing, right?
Yeah. Right.
Wow. I don't know. I think, I ain't going nowhere. Probably the most I'll do is check on some shit in my house in Lumberton and sit right back on the back porch. Still shelter in place. I ain't going nowhere. Yeah. I'm sorry. And it's too far. Like, I was thinking about doing a round trip, like going to the beach, looking at the water, and then coming back. I don't even want to do that.
Well, I had thought, and I was thinking, because I do feel bad for the kids, and I was like, where could I take them so we're not all up on top of people that, they can dip a toe in the water or something, and then, But then I don't know if you saw the pictures of it. I've never been, but Ocean City is crazy.
Yep.
I was like, Virginia Beach for us is a little too far without, doing an overnight or whatever. And I was like, and that's been packed.
Have you thought about going to the Eastern Shore? How close is that? Or where Lynn lives?
Well, I guess
Gloucester.
people, I don't know. Have you ever been to Chesapeake Beach? Is it Chesapeake Beach? And I've read comments. People like that's not like overly packed. So it's like, just so they don't go crazy, I gotta think of something where probably they could dip a toe in the water. Because here, even in my community, our HOA is shut down the pool, which I really don't honestly know if I would send them to the pool anyway. But I'm like, well, they can't even like go up there for 2 seconds and like dip a toe in the water,
Also, check out some of if you did want to stay overnight, like some of the Airbnbs are now picking back up. Because I was thinking about decamping, just for the summer to like a beach, a single house, private beach and that kind of thing. Don't have to fight the crowds, but they are only renting, and there are some exceptions for longer term rentals that are not completely outrageous. Consider doing that if you wanted to have that type of experience, whole home, sink with a pool, and they don't have to really go anywhere and not on top of anybody.
Yeah, then it's I don't know if you've seen the ads for it, but those tiny, I guess that they call them tiny campers, or tiny.
Oh, the tiny houses.
Tiny houses like in the Shenandoah, and it's supposed to be, it's almost like camping, I guess, but not camping. And I guess it's just like I gotta see if it's like a lake or whatever, and how they kind of do their social distance. I mean, because that was their big spiel. They were like, well, every little campsite is blah 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 fee, so you really don't see anybody. I'm like, yeah, but if we want to.
The only problem I have with that is they usually, if they're like most RV parks, there's a shared water source, and sometimes it's a well, and again, that's why I'm not in my camper, because I don't trust the water source and wind and stuff like that. It's just still too close for comfort. I'm going to need real bigger walls, not on the same water source, shared water source, and potential ventilation. I just can't do that. That's why no hotels. Right. I can't go to I would have been right in Pirates Cove if it was that crucial. But nah, I can't do it.
Right.
And have the potential of being right behind somebody, or have one of the big super tankers like pull up behind me. It's just too scary. It is really scary, but it's a consideration though.
Yeah. How
much distance is between, but I would just be really concerned about the contaminated water source.
That's why I said. But I guess not even them. Blame it on them, but me too. Just for your mental health, to see different change of scenery. Because I was telling my girlfriend Movita, I was like, how many times before all this happened? And I guess it's be careful what you wish for. I said, how many times have we was like, gosh, getting up every day going to work, I would just love to stay in my house.
There you go. You got it.
I said that now we're here, and you're like, oh. And she was like, yeah, we say that, and you want to stay in your house, but you never, I guess they caveat that, but you are allowed to leave and go places.
And weekends take on a whole different meaning. Like if I talk to you now, and then I have follow up with my friend Lawrence at 12, but going out and getting the most I do now is just go out and get refills or take out the trash, and that's when I go and check the mail. So, and I look forward to that little bit of caveat. And I realized I haven't put gas in my truck in 3 weeks, and I'm going to
Well, and yesterday, now that you talk about gas, yesterday was like the first time I put gas in my car myself since probably like maybe April. And I got out and act like a damn new driver. I was like, I kind of forgot what to do. I'm sitting there like, okay. I said, that's a damn shame. I've been driving how many years and sit up here act like, okay.
I was trying to figure out how I have a whole routine. It takes me way too long to get out of my house now. And it also takes a while for me to get gas because before I get out the truck, I have to clean my hands. I put my gloves in and make sure my mask. And then, but I still grab the handle of the gas handle and wipe it. Even though I still got gloves on, I still wipe it off with my Clorox wipe. And I still, and then I open up and it just takes too long to do shit. And then I make sure I toss the gloves before I get back in my truck. And to keep from, again, self-contaminating potential unsanitized surface, then you have to do the sanitizer again. It is a long time to get gas. And you got to make sure that I use Face ID, that I don't have the mask on, because the camera on the phone don't recognize me.
Right. Oh my goodness. But then, and going out, because I was out yesterday, and you with your mask on, and almost now it's like automatic. You throw the mask on, jump out the car, and I had to stop for a moment and think, oh my God, is this gonna be our new normal? Yep. Just roll out the car with your mask on, and it ain't nothing but a thing like you grabbed your purse and you ready to go.
Exactly. It is a new, because we know if you don't want to die, that is how you got to roll. Really. For real. So, however, what are your thoughts on, we talked about school and some other things, and we know that the heat has nothing to do with it. I don't think, they were talking about 18 months to 2 years. And you can look at the last pandemic, the flu pandemic, that lasted almost 3 years after World War One.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the new norm. And do you think it's going to last again through 2021?
Well, I do, but I won't be pressured by other people. But I guess between people trying to listen to Trump and just for their own sanity want to get back to normal, how people are kind of rushing this, and you do see like a lot of people out with no mask, no glove, just like they woke up and we still back in February or whatever. But I'm like, people, I said, we never gonna get out of the house if y'all keep saying it's a hoax, this was a conspiracy. And it's stuff you see on Facebook, people like, they don't believe it. And if you take an example and you're almost like, well, I don't know how I can argue it, but then you're like, because it shows social distancing is working. Again, Miles is he's to the point now that it's warm. He wants to go outside and be with his friends. And, and when his dad and I are still like, Miles, no, because we're kind of still leery because it's out there. Or if you go out there, you need to wear a mask and you need to do X, Y, Z. Well, he wants to go to the court and play ball with his friends. Some of that seems a little unrealistic. So he's like, Mom, I think you and Dad just made this up. There's no virus. He was like, because the people you're trying to keep me from, their parents from the very beginning have let them go outside. They go to the court. They haven't got sick. And I'm like, I said, well, Miles, I said, because social distancing, basically probably because their parents have them in the house and it's them and their parents. And I said, and if they do let them go outside, they have very little contact, or they're having contact with the same people. I said, but now that things are opening up to Miles, and I said, parents are going back to work or whatever. I said, then that's like, you don't know what's being introduced into that house. I said, so no, we didn't make this up. It's very real. And I said, just, what other people do with their kids is them. I said, you got the parents you got, and I believe this shit is real, and you not going.
And that's the bottom line. And I'm thinking about all the kids that I know of that are dead or are recovering because of that multi-system shit. That is real. And I'm also wondering if what I was taking care of when I was practicing, they called it Kawasaki's disease, if it wasn't one of a different family of a type of coronavirus that was causing that shit. Because it looked like the same thing to me.
Right. And you try to use that example, but then, I don't think a 14-year-old can rationalize it. And you always want to go back through YouTube or the videos on Facebook where, you have those testimonials of people that are in or were in the hospital dealing with corona. And I told Miles, I said, well, Miles, I said, if you go out there and you catch something, you bring it back in here, either you get sick or you make anybody else in this house sick. I said, we are in the process of we're trying to move. I said, if somebody in this house got sick, I said, that's a wrap. I said, that's a basic. We've got 2 weeks of somebody being on quarantine. I said, God forbid if one of us has to go to the hospital. I said, and you, Miles, you particularly, I said, well, you try to act like you're not. I said, but you're very much a mama's boy. And all up in my face, at night when you trying to wind down and go to sleep. I said, you would have to toe that road alone, buddy. I said, if you got sick to the point where you had to go to the hospital, I can't go with you. I said, your dad can't go with you.
You would have to drop him off at the door.
Or the ambulance would have to come get him. I said, you would be in the hospital alone. And I said, and if it's to the point, I said, heaven forbid, if you had some underlying condition we didn't know about, and it took a turn where they thought you were going to die, I said, you and I would be talking, hopefully through FaceTime. I said, if the nurse had something to do, that could show FaceTime. I said, but you would have to either go in the hospital, sick, get well on your own, or die in that hospital by yourself.
Just the loneliness of the illness and how it separates people. It brings you together, but it's only for a time, and not having to be around a whole bunch of people, it's okay. And that's just me talking as an introvert and ain't got no kids and telling you get it, but it's not worth dying for. Nothing is worth dying for. I'm sorry.
And one of my neighbors, like further down the street, and you remember Barbara, my coworker, the big tall one. She goes to church with him, and she said, well, his father caught the virus and passed from it in the hospital. And she was telling me, he was very upset, and I always wonder how they kind of dealt with it. She said the Zoom funeral had to be, or the viewing had to be closed casket. And the funeral home would not, let them bring a nice suit, put him in a suit. Said he was still in his hospital gown in that zipped up black bag that they picked him up from the hospital. I was like, damn. And she was like, he is kind of devastated because, his father was a sharp dresser, was very meticulous about his clothes. She's like, so that hurt his heart that he couldn't dress his dad up. So told him, nope, he has to stand whatever he died in the hospital. And he basically in his casket in that damn black bag from the hospital.
And so they basically just seal it up and then put him in the ground. Wow.
Right.
Wow.
So I said, well, you would kind of assume that's how a funeral home would handle it. I said, because they don't know all the ramifications from the virus. So I said, I guess it's usually if that drain into the blood and they're embalming, they're not willing to do that because they don't know if is it almost like HIV? Can I get it through blood? So I guess they trying to, I said, whatever guidelines they've been given, they doing the minimum. So I said, so hard both ways. I said, you in the hospital dying, going through it alone. I said, but plus the family can't even properly grieve because you buried in the damn bag you came out the hospital in.
Wow. In a time like I never thought I would see, they basically have them stacked up in rooms, like the morgue, or overflowing. This is in New York, and in Brooklyn, they have all those refrigerated semis.
Yeah.
Because they can't keep up. And it kind of dropped off, and now they're seeing the numbers pick back up again.
Well, was it what state was that? Was it New York? Said they basically used an ice rink somewhere because it was the proper temperature.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was
No.
closed.
Wow.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. That's crazy.
Some area used an ice rink because they was like, it's the proper temperature, and it was closed because of, stay-at-home orders anyway. So I was like, but you get to that point where you have that many damn bodies that you're filling up an ice rink.
How scary is that? And it's not done. And the people that said now that we've been sheltered in place, they open the stuff back up. Now they seem like Arizona thinks that they're more prepared to, if there is another way, that they can handle it. And I'm like, the lies you tell. No, you ain't.
Well, and you see how from this administration, how political it is, because what happened, we went from them daily briefings to nothing. And now they said, they're not even reporting that, kind of trying to keep it hush-hush that these places, these states are, having this rebound. So because they just want the people to keep going outside and thinking that's going to grow the economy.
And can we kind of talk, I kind of figured that out too, because between Georgia and Florida, they had to restate their numbers because they were lying. Yeah. And they were trying to blame the Chinese and the Russians about not reporting adequate numbers and deaths. Yeah. However, neither were the states, different states.
Yeah. Yep.
They lying. You can't even, and that's what it's all about too. In the police brutality, we got an easier way to vote these fools out, but at the same time, having a public health system that you can depend on for accurate information and accurate dissemination of information, because we know all of y'all lying.
And and I guess it's all smoke and mirrors too, but really, I guess our limited circles of how we communicate with family and friends, we need to emphasize that, be an advocate that if you don't have your voter registration, get all that done now, because just from some of the primaries, in Georgia, you heard like they didn't have enough ballots, the machines weren't working. Yep. You had all these problems. I said, if he even gets a whiff that he thinks he might lose in November, I said, what we're going, exactly, and what we're going through, I said, this is going to be tenfold all over the country.
And that's where the states where they're having the resurgence and nobody's believing, that is where it comes in. I got my PPE and I'm ready to wait in line because I'm not going to do mail-in by ballot. Yeah. I got my Dallas Cowboys chair. I'm gonna have some water. I'm actually thinking about getting I'm crazy, but they have because through the camping, they have these porta potties just in case it take that long and there's a dearth of bathrooms. I got a porta potty, so it's on. You want me to wait for 6 hours? If that's what I got to do, I'm okay with that because my vote will count, and I'll make sure it get in there. And if I have to, I'm also considering possibly being a volunteer because we got to vote. This is not tenable. I cannot do another 4 years. No, we can't afford to do another 4 years.
And I told Dwight, once we move, I said that because I think the motor vehicle things are open in Virginia now. I told him, I said that's going to be priority number one. I said we're going to go get our damn IDs changed. I think they delayed having the real ID, but whatever. I told him we're going to change it over that damn real ID. Make sure it has that. Then they say it needs to be punched or something up in the corner to make sure it's valid. Mm-hmm. And I said, and refill out our damn voter registration cards. I said, look, that almost be priority before we even turn on the damn electricity. Because I said we're not gonna go through another 4 years of this. And I said, you can see it now. I said, and they're gonna cheat. I said they are going to try to cheat.
And they go, or because they start seeing the numbers coming back, then you're going to have all these lawsuits. And there's another way that they can cheat too with the electoral college, flipping, forcing the electorates to change their vote, even though the popular vote is obviously for a particular candidate. They're going to try to sway it. They dirty like that. Fucking dirt bags.
Well, and you've seen time and time again, you got an attorney general that is grimy.
He's just as complicit in this nonsense too. He don't follow the rules and don't care about the law. How can you be an attorney general and you the worst criminal? You need to be frog walked out for real. He does.
And I think McConnell's seat is up this year.
Yes.
And I haven't seen it in a while. I guess everything is going on, but they for some reason I was getting the advertisements here in the DMV from the lady, I guess, that's trying to run against him. I think she's a military vet or whatever. And I was like,
donate to her, and also
that's what I was saying. I was like,
Lindsey Graham.
I'm about to write down this damn web address where to send some money to her campaign.
Do it today.
I said, cause she gonna get some of my money.
If that's what it takes, because you got to match them between JoJo and her campaign, and also the dude Lindsey Graham, the black man down in South Carolina, also making sure that those seats have to turn. We got to flip the Senate, and we also got to vote dumbass out. And then there's a whole bunch of other people within this administration that need to be pink slipped, starting with the Attorney General. He has to go.
Well, I'll look up the one in South Carolina, but I saw the one from McConnell. I was like, I said, well, I want to send this girl some money. I don't even live in Kentucky. I said, why?
I don't even live there, but I'll send her some money for sure.
I was like, I don't even live here, and I am going to send her some money.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. I'm gonna leave you with this though. There is another. Did you end up getting some rosé from Lafitte?
No, but it was my intention. I guess like my farewell to like my little neighborhood buddies and friends. I was gonna buy everybody a bottle with my goodbye card.
Or you can also do that, or specialty coffee. There's it's called Black and Bold. They have tea, and they also have different great strengths of coffee, all run by Black folks. I dig it. I learned about it. They're in Target, Whole Foods. You get them off Amazon, or you go directly through their website. And I'm just on it right now. I actually subscribe to Writer's Block Coffee out of California, but these are actually run by some brothers. So I'm thinking about switching my subscription over to them.
Okay.
But it's called BLKANDBOLD.com. And they got a little girl, they got a little crown, a little gold crown over as their logo. I think it's cool as hell.
What is it? BLKAND?
B as in boy, OLD.com.
Okay.
I dig it. I dig that gold crown for real. And they got loose, and I got my little coffee pot. They got some loosely specialty teas. It's banging. I dig it.
Yeah, that's why I was looking at the website. I said, nope. I said this because I got a couple people that like wine. So I said, this will be, it was nice knowing you. Catch you on the flippy flop. And then Kennedy, I don't know if you paid attention. And then Kennedy's little friend's mama, who was a white lady with the long blonde hair, they're moving to Maryland, and she likes wine. So she and I was cool. So I was like, oh, I'll get her a little bottle. and they're buying a house. So I was like, that'd be her little congratulations. See you on the flippity flop.
Because that is also good. You could actually, it almost looks like champagne, but it does go well. Like if you have like a lead crystal, like a champagne glass, it looks really good with that bottle. That would look pretty fly.
Okay.
But for the coffee drinkers and all of us. So I'm going to end this. I'm going to stop recording right now. When all of this shakes out, which side of history are we all going to be on? I think that finding is still up for grabs, but I hope that in my work, in my creation, that I will find myself on a part of history that I can live with. And never forget that COVID is still out there, still stalking people and fucking shit up. So if this and the marches and the protests are just too much for you to handle, it's okay not to be okay. There are services available 24 hours a day. If you want to chat online, you can use suicide prevention, lifeline.org/chat/. If vodka is your problem, you can call 1-800-662-HELP. That's 1-800-662-4357. There's Talkspace, Headspace, and Doctor On Demand that you can seek help in the privacy of your cubicle, your house, your bathroom, your basement, at a fraction of the cost of conventional therapy. This journey is hard, and it's okay to ask for help, and don't let anyone else tell you differently. And I hope you will tune in to the next episode, where I hope to continue to expand your fund of knowledge and also to entertain, and I'm hopeful that you'll learn something. And again, thank you for listening.